1045 The Zone's YouTube page. Workouts start on Thursday in Indy with defensive linemen and linebackers. Tonight, the Nashville Predators return home looking to extend the win streak to 6. They host the Ottawa Senators, a 7 p.m. puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. In college hoops tonight, Vandy travels to Arkansas for an 8 p.m. tip. Number 16, Kentucky visiting Mississippi State at 6 o'clock. And top-ranked Houston hosting Cincinnati at 6 p.m. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 1045 The Zone.
What's up, everybody? Blaine and Mickey. We're just hanging out in the studio here, watching the combine go by, talking to Lucas, and I looked at Joey Bananas, and he was gesturing wildly like, you guys are on the air. So we're on the air on this Tuesday. Got a big show planned. Ryan Callahan and Ryan Carthon, Callahan, as we've been referring to them, spoke at the combine today. We can get into that some. Ryan Callahan will join us from Go Vols 247. So we will have Ryan Callahan on. Also, Coach Mack in the 2 o'clock hour. So lots of Vols stuff to get to, lots of NFL stuff to get to. Blaine Bishop is here, and I'm here.
We starting early? I thought we'd go on 102.
I don't know, man. We're on.
Yeah, well, explain that, Bananas.
You'll have to talk to Lucas and Buck. Because they usually go a little later in their final segment, which is fine. And so they must have gotten out a little earlier today. Buck must have had something to do in Indianapolis.
Oh, well, how about this? Let's make sure that you guys notify one another, the producers, to make sure everybody's all about communication. Because what if I wasn't here? What if neither one of us was here? And then you just started the show without forewarning us. We were sitting here having conversations. Like, you got to give us a countdown or something. You just say, you guys are on. Whoa. 5, 4, 3, give us something. You go mute. I mean, what?
I was talking in the talk back. I don't know if you guys could hear me.
Did anybody respond with any body language to give you a signal? Did you, Mickey?
I did not, but we're off and running now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm just trying to make sure, just in case we're not here, even though we were here.
Well, Buck and Lucas got done a little too fast today. They were fast. Ryan and Callahan today talked a lot about speed, talked a lot about getting faster for the Titans. Now, this is funny because we've been having this discussion for years and had it last year. I think Vrabel even talked about the Titans getting faster. Then they went through the draft and they didn't take anybody fast. So then they signed some free agents and didn't go speed-wise. So that was an interesting topic today from Indianapolis. Rand even said at one point we have to improve on team speed that's visible. Wide receiver room, said Rand, is where we're going to look to continue to add playmakers. Brian Callahan said there's an amount of explosiveness and speed that we can add that would help us. So these guys, obviously, Blaine, have been looking, Rand was here last year, Callahan getting to know the roster. I'll be interested to see what that looks like because they talked a whole lot about it today. That was a recurring theme for both of those guys for this team to get faster. So, they got a chance to maybe do that with some free agents to start off with because I know we keep talking about the draft, but as you always point out, they got a whole class of free agents they got to sign first. So how will that look, I wonder?
Yeah. Well, when they talk about speed, I think they're talking about overall team speed. I think that's what you kind of were referencing there, but usually we were talking about speed. Everybody goes straight to wide receiver. We need speed there. We need speed in cornerback. We need speed at all the positions that need speed. It needs to be upgraded with talent, just the whole roster. So I don't know, the crux of all the things that I've listened to today about the coaches and the GM today, what they were referencing, it seems like, man, almost like they almost told us that they're going to draft a wide receiver with the first pick.
Did it sure feel that way to you, too?
So then it made me think, what's this, the season of lies?
Yes.
So, so y'all are taking the tackle.
Yeah.
See, so that's how you got to listen. And if it goes on in this industry, it goes in every industry. And they'll straight tell you a straight lie. And right in your face.
What do you say if they tell you to look right? Which way should you look?
Look left.
Look left every time.
Look left every time. See, I mean, even start at the top with the richest of the richest people. They say one thing and then do the opposite. So so that's kind of where I'm at right here. Yeah.
We're looking to add playmakers on both sides of the ball, said Ryan Carthon. Like you said, faster linebackers, faster cornerbacks, you name it, faster everybody, more team speed.
Yeah. Oh, let's go here. The duck falling. Blaine needs to chill out. This reminds you of the wake up zone. No. Buck needs to stay on this show until it ends. That's what he needs to do. It's done repeatedly, and nobody's reprimanded him for it. That's what needs to be done. So that's where I'm coming from. Had nothing to do with bananas.
Bananas, you got any of the sound that we talked about? If you had a chance to harvest that yet?
I am working through it right now.
All right.
I will let you know when I've got the ones we're looking for.
All right. Well, here's one of the main things that you were referencing right off the top. Maybe this was the third thing that Rand said, and here's the quote. If you're sitting there and there's a wide receiver there and you know that there's a deep O-line class, and then he kind of turned and went in another direction. But literally, he said exactly the thing that you said. Well, if you're sitting there, there's a wide receiver there, and you know there's a deep O-line class because he was getting asked about different position groups and, who's deep and what do you like and what do you not like. So, again, they mentioned wide receiver several times, but that's one of the first things that Rand even said was bringing that up.
Yeah. I don't know. You got anything, bananas?
On what was said with by Ryan Carthon?
Yeah.
To me, they were putting so much emphasis on the wide receiver. I think what you usually say, look one way, look the other, like you guys were talking about. I think
it's hard to figure out, though. What's to believe, though?
Yeah, I know.
That's my whole thing.
It is. And so it makes it seem like they're putting on that face like, oh, we want a wide receiver. We're going to look at the wide receiver. We did it. Ryan Callahan did it in Cincinnati. They took Jamar Chase because he was the best player and they needed a wide receiver, and they think that he could create separation on the outside, so you didn't really need to protect the quarterback as much because you had that guy winning on the outside quickly and could get the ball out quick to him. But I don't know if that's the case here, because there you had Joe Burrow, who was a little bit more proven than Will Levis. You don't really know what you have in Will Levis completely yet. You have an idea. You have a forecast of what could potentially be, but it's not like what they had with Joe Burrow. So I don't think you can use Cincinnati, what they did with selecting Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell back in, what was that, 2020? Is that when that was? I don't think you can do that because Will Levis is not the same. It's not the same situation. So, yeah, they might be putting all this emphasis on wide receiver, on like, yeah, you know what? We'll look at the wide receivers. But you can't rule out left tackle because of that, because it's not the same situation, and they desperately need some left tackle help.
I went back and looked at my notes because I was trying to think of some of the things. We haven't heard from Callahan too many times yet. I went back and I was trying to find some of the first things he said because he got asked from people about the O-line and, you can see that it's a problem here and how do you plan to fix it? He said, I think it's a holistic offensive issue. This is literally from his first time we heard from him. I've been keeping this in my notes. You know me, I hoard notes. I think it's a holistic offensive issue if you have protection problems. There's a lot of ways you can help weaknesses, highlight strengths, and keep everybody involved in the process. And I wrote at the time, how does this affect the first pick? Remember, he talked some about a lot of what Joseph was saying, which I guess he said that to Buck later on Buck's show. I don't think he actually got into that when he spoke to everybody, but he said it later to Buck because Buck asked him specifically about it. But he talked about you can find ways to help the offensive line by not having them to hold a block so long, get rid of the ball, those kind of things. So, and then that makes me think, okay, are they actually telling the truth about the wide receiver thing? Because he talked about when he first got here of maybe you can mask deficiencies on the offensive line. And then you couple the fact of that it's the season of lies. So, I'm like a dog chasing my tail right now on this. The bottom line is I wonder if they'll take in some combination with the first 2 picks, a receiver and an offensive tackle. Because every time we thought we figured out what the Titans needed under John Robinson, they take the complete opposite.
Oh, I got it wrong every time. It never. I didn't even get the position group right.
Same.
So I have no idea. To me, this is the first draft. Ryan and Callahan, just because Vrabel's personality, and I think he was really controlling the draft and all the picks and leading guys down the road of whatever he wanted. That's just my belief. So we have no idea. This is really the first draft for Ryan and Callahan, in theory, with Ryan running the show. So I have no idea what he thinks. I'm sure he's excited about this go-around and kind of being able to build his own team with his own personnel and his own picks and free agent signings. So I don't know. They may draft a wide receiver. They may do it, actually. Just depending on how it falls. Maybe they're pushing for wide receiver publicly because maybe a lot of people want to move up to get maybe a couple of those guys that that's going to be in that range, which will be Neighbors and your guy from Washington.
Rome Odunze, yeah.
Rome Odunze. I actually, the more I'm on watching him, I know, Mickey, that's who you put. I kind of like him. And I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did make that move, only because I wonder if the theory changes because Callahan the dad is actually Bill. Yeah. Is actually the offensive line coach. And what I heard through also in the interviews was he talked about how, Callahan, the O-line coach, wowed him, when he, showed him video, I guess, of one player from the beginning of the season to how he looked at the end. I'm just guessing.
Yep.
And then we need to learn more about offensive line play, and I still have a long way to go to learn. This is Ryan Carthon's saying this.
Yes.
So it made me think, well, man, they may think that they can get better just with some of the players they got. Now, they got to draft one lineman. There's no way around it now. Which one you want to draft and where you draft them, with your first 2 picks could, fluctuate depending on who goes where before them. So they may be looking at wide receiver. Maybe they are looking at offensive tackle with the first 2 picks and say, hey, we'll go either way. We're comfortable either way. We got a couple guys in sight at both positions.
It always seemed like, and we got to talking about this, like John Robinson just got addicted to value because they hit on Big Jeff and he had a torn knee ligament. And if, he had been healthy, he probably would have gone in top 5. And so then it's like, well, gosh, we could just keep doing this. But he never, you would look at the most pressing, obvious need, like you said, and they wouldn't even take from that position group. He'd go in a completely different way. What they do with the first couple of picks in this draft will be interesting to me because if they say Alt and Fashanu were there and we took Alt, and here's why he was the best player at a position of need, and that's what we're going to do. Or if Odunze's there, Neighbors, and they go, no, man, we took a receiver. I mean, we couldn't turn that down. Even though our bigger need was offensive line, we couldn't turn this down. To me, that'll tell us a whole lot about what their philosophy is. Did they draft the biggest position of need, or do they just draft best player available? If Rome Odunze...
For another need position, though.
Right.
Because they need so many. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong either way. So I'm comfortable whatever they, take there in the first pick. I would assume that it's going to be a wide receiver or offensive tackle. That is what I'm expecting. If they come out of the curveball and, draft a middle linebacker, I'll be like, huh?
Like the Lions. Take running backs and middle linebackers.
So, yeah. So, I don't know. But, game changer offensive guy, I could definitely see that happening. So, definitely need to, and get the fans excited too. So I think first 2 picks got to be O-line, wide receiver. I'm kind of where I'm at. I'm hoping you can get a 3rd round pick though. I really would love to take a corner in the 3rd round.
I got a scenario for that. I'm going to hold it. I got one though. I got a scenario that gets them a 3rd round pick.
So they're trading back?
Yeah, but not even far.
Okay, so they go from 7 to 11.
Not even that far. The magic number is here. You know me. I hoard it in my notes. I got it right here. The magic number is to move back to Atlanta's spot. Does Atlanta trade with the Titans at 7? Falcons GM said quarterback is a top priority this offseason. They pick 8th. The Titans are in good trade position for someone who wants to get ahead of Atlanta. If you know that Atlanta's taking a quarterback and you want to get ahead of them, the Vikings need a quarterback at 11. The Broncos need a quarterback at 12. The Raiders do at 13. Who's at 9? So 11 would be one of the places they could go if they traded back, and that would get you a third-round pick. But then you miss probably Alt and Fashanu and Odunze, and then you're really at like, do you want the best defensive player on the board? Is there, do you take the next wide receiver, whoever that is? Is Tali Fuaga there, the other tackle? That opens up a whole Pandora's box of other things. But people wanting to get ahead of the Falcons at number 8 could be the magic bullet if they want to trade back.
That's only if the Falcons don't trade for a quarterback before the draft.
Yeah.
And the Bears GM came out and said that if they're going to select a quarterback, a.k.a. Caleb Williams at number 1, that they will trade Justin Fields before free agency. He said that. He said most likely they would. He said that at the Combine today.
So Chicago.
Wait. Say that again. Exactly what he said.
So I can go find the exact quote, but what I remember reading was he said if they were to draft a quarterback at pick number 1, which would probably be Caleb Williams,
which is second before it's after free agency,
that they would trade Justin Fields before free agency.
When is free agency?
In about 2.5 weeks.
Legal tampering starts March 11th.
Okay. So from 11 to the draft, or somewhere in between.
Yeah. Here's the exact quote. If the team decides to draft a quarterback with the number 1 overall pick, he doesn't think it would be right to not trade Justin Fields before free agency begins. So if they were going to pick a quarterback, Justin Fields would be traded before free agency. Is what he's making it seem like.
Well, they also have the 9th pick. The Jets have the 10th pick. So Minnesota's probably your first best bet that you could trade with Minnesota to put them ahead of Atlanta. Do you want to trade back to 11? That would be that'd be the question.
We shall see.
Let's do this. Let's see Ryan Callahan. Lots going on with the Tennessee Vols. He's the recruiting director. He's also been following Tennessee versus the courts, versus the NCAA. Has written a whole lot about this for Go Vols 247. Let's catch up with him next. Get the latest on all that and more. Ryan Callahan from Go Vols 247 next.
Hey, this is Blaine Bishop here. With the unpredictable weather hitting us hard, it's crucial you ensure your home is equipped for any challenge. So don't let the next power outage catch you off guard. So Cool Ray Heating, Cooling, Plumbing, and Electrical has your back. They're offering an incredible $1,500 off select at-home generators. Yes, you heard it right, $1,500 off. So don't gamble with your family's safety. Act now and secure your peace of mind with one of Cool Ray's whole home generators. And if that's not enticing enough, take advantage of your $49 tune-up for your HVAC system. It's perfect for ensuring your home stays comfortable in any weather. And if you've been thinking about upgrading to a new HVAC system, they're offering free estimates on replacements. Their expert comfort consultants are ready to guide you toward the perfect solution for your home. That's Cool Ray, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and lights bright. So visit coolray.com to take control of your home's comfort and safety. And as always, that's coolray.com.
Blaine and Mickey 104.5 The Zone. One of the more confusing things that's happened to me recently is the Titans have a coach named Ryan Callahan, and Go Vols 247 has a guy named Ryan Callahan, and I have called Ryan Callahan Ryan Callahan. But now we have Ryan Callahan coming on, and Ryan Callahan. I will not call you Brian Callahan. Welcome into the Blaine and Mickey Show.
Instead, we'll just ask you, are y'all related?
Yes.
Even though it's not even spelled right the same way, is it?
No relation, but last names are spelled the same. It'll be cool though to have to do a double take every time I'm watching a Titans game. Like, wait, are they talking? Oh, never mind, not me.
I would just take credit if I were you. You know, if you're in a bar or something and people ask you about it, just say, "Yeah, I didn't want to leave Go Vols 247, so I'm just coaching the Titans in my spare time."
Especially if everything's going good. Yeah, if it's going bad, like, no, we're not related.
Yeah, I don't even know that guy. Yeah, for sure, you can
Exactly.
say that. All right, so here's where we are. Tennessee and Virginia attorneys general, not attorney generals, attorneys general. They make their case. Now we have a temporary injunction where the NCAA can't enforce these NIL rules that they really didn't have in the first place. How long does this particular temporary thing last? You know, what's the timeline for this?
Yeah, I guess that's sort of the mystery of all this. We're obviously not legal experts, and we have to put on that hat here as sports writers. But as best I can tell, there's no set timeline on sort of when and there is apparently still another step of this that there does need to be a permanent injunction put in place for this to remain sort of the law of the land when it comes to the NCAA not being able to enforce its NIL rules or guidelines from before. Now everyone thinks this is pretty much a dead issue for the most part going forward, that this essentially is the nail in the coffin for the NCAA in terms of being able to really do anything in regard to limiting NIL or affecting the role of collectives in NIL and things like that. But they're, they still do need to go down that road and maybe have another hearing at some point. But yeah, as far as when that might take place, there's been no date set. There's no indication of exactly when that might happen. And I would guess that's probably months down the road, probably not days or weeks. So we'll just have to wait and see about that. But yeah, the case isn't officially permanently done, but everyone I've spoken with believes, that this preliminary injunction essentially is a pretty strong signal that this is a dead issue for the NCAA, and there's really nothing they can do going forward.
Well, and in the meantime, and as Blaine and I like to say, in between time, if I was everybody, I would just have every booster just throwing cash at people. There are no rules right now. I mean, the court said there are no rules. So is everybody just going straight bananas right now with their money? They could be.
Well, the reality is, and this is kind of the silly part about the NCAA trying to go after Tennessee to begin with, I really don't think there was any restrictor plate on this to begin with.
Right.
I think it was always sort of the Wild West. It certainly was before the NCAA came out and tried to put some guidelines in place a couple of years ago. They were slow to do that, slow to react, couldn't foresee what NIL might become, and the fact that there were no limitations on that without them saying anything publicly. So, this has kind of been wide open to begin with. And, so I don't think this ruling necessarily changes anything. There might be some schools that now say, okay, if we weren't up to speed on our collective, and this would probably be more small programs, lower level programs, things like that. You might say, okay, we've officially got to get up to speed on this. There's no reason to hold back now. But for the most part, I think it was kind of business as usual. But the NCAA was kind of going after cases where, people were maybe just being too loose with the rules. You had the Florida State situation where an assistant coach got slapped on the wrist for taking a player to meet with the collective, things like that. And then otherwise, it was just the cases where there was public acknowledgement or public reporting about an NIL deal, and a significant one. And that's obviously kind of what we think drew their attention to the Tennessee case with the reported deal for Nico Iamaleava. There was the Florida case, Jaden Rashada, that whole mess down there kind of caught their attention. So if it's not a deal like that, that's the crazy thing about this. The NCAA was never going to be able to police this because so many of these things are just happening behind the scenes. These are essentially deals with privately owned businesses. There's no way to police that. The NCAA has no subpoena power, so they were never going to be able to keep track of this, and there was really no need for schools and collectives to ever slow down in that regard.
There you go, Ryan Callahan. He never slows down covering the Vols for Go Vols 247. He is at Ryan Callahan 247 on Twitter.
Well, Ryan, it is combine week for the National Football League. And it made me think, you are covering the SEC in Tennessee, of course. Wonder if the SEC had their own combine. What would that look like? Do you like that idea or you don't?
That I would love that. I mean, pro days are not bad. You know, if you've been to one before, it's you know, you'll sometimes have like Tennessee will sometimes have some other in-state guys in town to help sort of make it worth everyone's while. You know, guys from Tennessee Tech or ETSU, places like that will come over when there's someone like that on the NFL radar. But yeah, to have that for one SEC school, bring everybody, make it a big event. I mean, that'd be pretty amazing. I mean, everything's a made-for-TV event these days as it is. I don't see why you wouldn't do the same thing with that. And the SEC could probably say, hey, who needs the NFL combine? We'll have the SEC combine, and it'll be a bigger deal than the NFL.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, because you may have to have 2 or 3 of them because there's going to be so many players from the SEC.
Yeah.
Like, well, and you move to different schools. I mean, man, that'd be awesome.
They would. And to your point, there are always some SEC players. And, I mean, obviously this is true for other conferences too, but especially in the SEC, I feel like there are always players who are in that late round range or undrafted free agent range where they end up sticking around in the NFL and getting a chance on a practice squad or making a team out of camp and making the 53-man roster despite being undrafted. You know, for teams to get more of a look at all SEC players like that, there would be a ton of interest, obviously, because some of those borderline, you know, seemingly, you know, borderline draftable players might end up drawing a ton of interest based on a performance at an event like that. And yeah, obviously the fan interest would be off the charts, I would imagine, for SEC teams. So, yeah, I'm all for it. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, I think Sankey needs to, you know, send me a residual there on the pay there once they start that up here next year. But the orange and white game is coming up. How are they going to, you know, facilitate, I guess, attendance with the construction, I guess, going to renovations of Neyland Stadium?
Yeah, the attendance will be limited to 10,000 fans for that, and that's you know, obviously not ideal for a spring game, considering Tennessee usually draws a significantly bigger crowd than that. It's been, you know, 40, 50,000 a lot of years at least. So that's you know, there's some fans that frankly, when they heard that announcement, were not thrilled, but you know, it's kind of the best of a few bad options Tennessee had for a spring game. You know, they had this issue a couple of years ago too, where they ended up having no spring game. Essentially, it was just on their practice field, and they sort of streamed it on a big video screen across campus for fans to sort of tailgate, sit outside, and watch it. And obviously, only so many did that. It wasn't a huge attended event, but it was still, you know, the best they could do under the circumstances, because they're in the middle of this sort of multi-year major renovation that's needed for Neyland Stadium. So they looked into 2 years ago, and this year again looked into the possibility of having an off-campus spring game, looked into the possibility of you know, just not really doing one at all, and kind of having one on the practice field again. And that's, you know, that's obviously not ideal either. So this one gives you a chance to host recruits, which would not be the same type of option for an off-campus spring game. You wouldn't be able to interact with them because it's off-campus. So this gives you a chance to interact with recruits, still get all the benefits of a spring game, just not as many fans involved. And you know, it'll still be streamed. Fans can watch it, but yeah, for at least one more year while they continue these renovations, it is going to be a little bit limited. And you know, it is what it is, I guess, under the circumstances.
Well, you got McIntyre here from the state here, BA at quarterback. I hear he's helping build the recruiting class. So what does that look like? How's that recruiting class going?
Yeah, it's off to a pretty good start. You know, it's Josh Heupel's 4th year, so I think some of that you see just the continuity there, the fact they've not had a lot of coaching turnover, that's sort of paying off as well. So you got a lot of things kind of converging to help, but they're off to a good start because they've already got 6 commitments, which for February is a pretty good number for Tennessee. They tend to be a little bit slower building classes because they do so much out-of-state recruiting historically, and that just takes a little more time usually to build relationships and get players to jump into your class. But they're off to a good start and in good shape with a lot of other guys. And, you know, they sort of had this same type of opportunity with Nico Iamaleava a couple years ago to be able to try to build a class around him. But, you know, I kind of point out to people that was a little bit different situation 2 years ago. Tennessee was coming off a 7-6 season in Josh Heupel's first year. There just wasn't as much buzz around the program at that time, not as much to sell. And you had a West Coast quarterback trying to recruit a lot of other players across the country. You got George McIntyre now, who's well-known in AAU circles from basketball. He's been on a bunch of visits to schools all over the Southeast and has met players there and at Tennessee. He's recruiting a lot of guys in Tennessee's regional footprint that he knows pretty well. So I think given that and the situation with Tennessee's program now compared to 2 years ago, he's going to have a chance to bring some pretty good players with him. And I think he's pretty optimistic based on the feedback he's gotten from a lot of receivers, especially offensive linemen, that he's going to be able to help build a pretty good class around him at Tennessee. So we'll see how it shapes up. But I think he's pretty confident Tennessee's going to have a top 10 class at this point next year.
Ryan Callahan, go Vols, 247.com.
All right, the Hitman brought up how many people actually get to see the spring game. Let me ask you this. Of the freshmen, maybe especially the early enrollee guys, who are some names that maybe as the fall camp rolls around that you truly think these dudes are going to be in the mix to help this team?
Yeah, that'll be really interesting because last year I feel like we weren't, Tennessee was in a position with a kind of a veteran-filled roster where we didn't really get to see a lot. And that class maybe didn't have quite as many guys just ready to step in and make huge impacts, just right away. This class has got a few more of those guys, and you've obviously had some veterans leave, opening a few more opportunities, but they still do have a good number of veterans on the roster too. So it still might be a challenge for some of them, but you've got a couple 5-stars, obviously. I think you start there in a lot of cases. Jordan Ross, edge rusher, that's a position where they've got some depth, but he's a really talented guy who showed in a couple All-Star games he can make some plays and has the talent that might just be too tough to keep off the field. So I would start there, and then Mike Matthews, the other one, wide receiver. Certainly that's a position where Tennessee could still use maybe an injection of some youth and some excitement there. So I could maybe see a guy like that having a chance to play early. And the other receiver, Braylon Staley, a 4-star out of South Carolina. I think both those guys have excited them at wide receiver. Peyton Lewis at running back, another guy, probably in line to be, maybe the number 3 running back going into the season. We'll see how that shakes out, especially with a new position coach there. But I think those are a few of the guys that kind of come to mind. And then in the secondary, I certainly wouldn't rule out Boo Carter. He's a guy that made a name for himself quite a bit in high school, made plays on both sides of the ball. So whether it's special teams or in the secondary or wherever, I wouldn't be shocked if you see him work his way onto the field in some capacity.
All right, one last one for me. Quick pivot to basketball. They've been blowing out bad teams lately, which is what you hope a championship team will do, but they have a heck of a four-game stretch left coming up to close out the season with a lot to play for, including possible number 1 seed in the tournament.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun stretch run for them. They've obviously not been challenged a whole lot lately. They've also had some up and down moments as well. The first half of that Missouri game looked like they were in danger of being knocked off by a pretty bad team. So they've had some moments where you still aren't sure about their consistency in a way that might concern you for NCAA tournament play. But should be no issue with motivation for these last 4 games. Some really tough teams down the stretch and a lot to play for. Tied for first place in the SEC standings, so a chance to win the regular season championship and continue to improve their resume for a possible number 1 seed in the tournament. So should be a fun stretch run, obviously starting with Auburn tomorrow night and Bruce Pearl. And, he's given Tennessee fits quite a bit over the years during the Rick Barnes era. So we'll see how that one goes. But it should be a fun stretch run and certainly a lot to play for Tennessee.
Yeah, for sure, man. Tomorrow night is going to be a lot of fun. Always a lot of fun catching up with Ryan Callahan at Ryan Callahan 247, Go Vols 247 recruiting editor.
Well, last question, and that is, any exciting news on potential on some visits by some guys you say, this is a game changer?
It'd be hard to point to just one. I will say their first weekend practice of the spring is March 23rd, that Saturday. They have spring break that kind of gets in the way in early March of having a lot of visits but the first couple weeks of the month. But once they get to spring practice, a lot of guys will be on campus. And that first weekend of spring practice looks like will be a pretty big visit turnout for them. So I think some 5-stars and high 4-star types have already indicated they'll probably be in for that one. So that will be a big event. The spring game's always a big event. It should be a pretty good turnout throughout the spring. So you always have a good idea coming out of spring practice of how a recruiting class might shape up. I think we'll certainly have a good feel by mid-April of how much of a chance they really have with some of those guys. But should be some impressive visitors coming to town for sure.
Whoa, you got me all excited, and I didn't hear a name. You're not giving us names?
Well, no. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, when
wow, it's that many.
Well, we expect guys like David Sanders Jr., the number 2 player in the country, offensive tackle from Charlotte, North Carolina. He's expected to be at Tennessee at some point this spring. I mean, really most of Tennessee's top targets include in-state guys like Cameron Sparks at Baylor, Radarius Jackson, the wide receiver from Memphis. Those guys are expected to be in town. Even talked to a top 100 wide receiver, Marcus Harris, out of California, coming back already after being at Tennessee last month for the first time. He'll be in town on April 4th. So just a lot of guys like that, coast to coast. So it should be a pretty big turnout throughout the spring. And like I said, kind of hard to point to just one.
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, man. You come from California, get down here, get yourself some fried food and hush puppies and all the good stuff that they don't have in other parts of the world. I think I'd be hooked if I'd never had that stuff. We got all the good food down south. Ryan, always fantastic stuff. People can follow you on Twitter again at Ryan Callahan 247. Of course, Go Vols 247 for great coverage, literally 24/7. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yes, sir. He stays on top of recruiting, and he's the guy for them who's been covering all this lawsuit stuff as well. You can go to Go Vols 247. He wrote a lengthy article about all of it to kind of get you up to date on everything. All right, let's stay with Tennessee and the SEC. I love Blaine's combine idea. Who's going to win the SEC championship, though, in 2024? Guess what? There's already odds out, and where do the Vols fit? Also, for all you Texas and Oklahoma fans, what does Vegas think about your chances? Well, they like one of you, not so much the other. We'll explain next.
Hey, Blaine Bishop here, and I'm excited to tell you about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance, or as you may know them as TOA. And TOA has 29 locations, over 100 orthopedic physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. In addition to their orthopedic clinics and urgent care facilities, TOA offers physical therapy, hand therapy, and sports performance training for teams and individuals at their sports performance centers. And as a former professional athlete, I know how important access to expert orthopedic care is. And whether you're an athlete, active adult, or just looking to get back to living your best life, you can visit TOA online at TOA.com. Yes, that's TOA.com. Or you can call them at 1-855-NEED-TOA. That's 1-855-NEED-TOA.
Life is busy. We could all use some extra time in our day, which is exactly why Two Rivers Ford offers mobile service. We'll bring the service to your driveway at no additional charge. Oil changes, brakes, batteries, the certified technicians at Two Rivers will perform basic maintenance on your vehicle wherever you are, so you'll have more time for moments like this. Schedule your mobile service appointment by scanning the QR code or calling Two Rivers Ford today.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Let's take Trey's phone call, 615-737-1045. We got time to do that. Then I'll give you this SEC odds for 2024. But Trey's been kind enough to hold on. What's up, Trey?
Hey, what's up, fellas? How y'all doing today?
Man, you tell us.
Hey, Blaine, woosah, my
man,
guy.
If you really think that was, I needed to woosah there, man, y'all ain't even heard nothing about the Hitman then. That was nothing. That was baby talk. I forgot we got a soft society. You can't correct anybody and ask them to do their job. You know.
Hey, Blaine. So I'm been hearing a lot of objections to the fact that we need somebody to throw the ball to. Nobody's talking about that. Everybody's talking about left tackle, this and that. We need somebody to throw the ball to other than D-Hop. And that's all Coach was saying. We need some playmakers on the team. We'll work, you know what I'm saying? He says it's a holistic situation there on the defensive line. I get it, and I understand that, but it's so much objection to him going after a playmaker, and I don't understand why. Can y'all clear that up for me? And y'all have a good day.
Thank you,
and you
Trey.
take care, y'all.
Thank you,
All right,
man.
Trey. What do you think?
Well, I think people know they need a tackle, and I think people also know that they need playmakers. Here's the funky thing, the wall that they're behind here is they don't have a third-round pick. So it's supposed to be a pretty deep receiver class, but do you really want to go past, say, the third round for tackle? Maybe you don't want to go past the second round because it's supposedly a deep class. But as far as a deep class for starters, I think most people would say, and there's some great guys in the first round, and it looks like for the receivers, maybe it would even spread like the guys, A.D. Mitchell, who spent his senior year here. Remember, we were watching his film the other day, and any other guy from Texas who's a second-round pick. I think the idea for me anyway, where I'm coming from is I think you need to take a tackle with one of the picks and a receiver with one of the picks. Mm-hmm. Now, whatever order they decide, because, again, they hinted at all this stuff today. They both spoke at the Combine. Be the last time we hear from both of them until the draft, I would imagine. Maybe they'll do something after free agency, so maybe one more time before the draft. But that's where I'm coming from is just to get a top-level guy, you got two opportunities, one in the first round, one in the second.
Yeah, and the order, I think, could be decided on how the flow of the first round goes. So you never know. If some people want to move up, which, your theory is maybe you could potentially move back and still be in the top 10, still get, the player you want, either one of them, wide receiver at that position or offensive tackle. So, I was listening to Coach Mack when we had him on last week. I thought he said it was a deep offensive line draft, correct?
Yes.
And he's referencing tackle, I was assuming. And so you could probably still get a good one with Callahan's help. Now, you got to know you're going to go through the process of developing, but hopefully sooner than later that you can get a player. So, yeah, I'm not opposed either way. But, yeah, you definitely have to have some weapons. You can't believe as of right now that Burks is going to be your number one guy. Based off of injuries so far, he hasn't played enough to actually even be on the field enough for you to even say he can be that. I want to take the potential out. He was a first round pick. He better potentially have that kind of play. But we got to get him healthy and see what he looks like out there compared to some of the other players. Because, man, this is going to be highway or no way to me after this season. If we don't see some out of him and he doesn't stay healthy, man, this is another wasted pick. So when anybody says they're going to draft a receiver, if it's your position, you're a current player, especially that high, you should take it as an insult. Mm-hmm. And it should be freaking personal. No question that they're going to draft a player in my position. Then guess what? I've always said this. Their actions speak louder than their words. They could be saying, man, we love you, Burks, and this and that. But guess what? Your actions said, you don't love me. So you should take it personally. You need to step it up. And I saw that they said that he's been working out with D-Hop the whole entire time. So I'm hoping that helps him. But he also has to continue to that development and relationship with his quarterback. That's one thing that nobody really talks about with D-Hop is he knows how to have a conversation so he can get that ball. That's a wily vet. So, yeah, he should take it very personal and come out there, guns a blazing, if you want to say that, on a football field and show what he's got. So as long as he stays healthy, I want to see what the kid's got. I think he's got some, but I can't even say it.
Well,
Especially in the offense he was in and with him being injured.
Yeah.
He was a decoy, deep ball guy. I mean, when they brought him back, it was like, well, dang, why is he even out there? If you're not going to try to utilize him.
And they didn't for long stretches.
Yeah, so I didn't get it. So hopefully that'll change here, with the change of style of offense that they're going to be running and where they're going to put it in the hands of playmakers. So they're going to get some playmakers. So, yeah, I'm right there with the caller. They got to get some playmakers. No doubt. I wouldn't be opposed to 2 receivers in this draft.
It didn't sound like they were either. Like you said off the top, I heard them mention receiver a whole lot. They sound like they could take 2.
Watch this. Only thing is you can't go back-to-back years all offensive players. And we know that cannot happen.
And how crazy is this? The offense was still broken after a draft with only offensive players.
Yeah. It spoke highly of the tight ends, though. I don't know if that was tomfoolery.
They're going to take Bowers.
I don't know. I kept saying, well, dang, he had me believing that he actually likes them. Like they have great upside and potential, which I think they do.
Yeah.
And he did say, he quantified and said, the third year is usually where you kind of turn the corner because you're doing multiple things in the pass and run game. And speaking of Chig, so that's where he's coming to, so I think he sees a lot of potential there.
All right, a little bit sidetracked, but we had to take that phone call. You can always jump in the mix, 615-737-1045. If you're watching on Zone TV, we appreciate that. You can jump in the F&M Bank chat at any time. And if you missed anything in the first hour, want to catch anything again, remember, hit Blaine and Mickey up wherever you have all your favorite podcasts. We'll do these SEC Conference Championship odds to start the second hour. We also got Coach Mack coming up. He's going to be at the Combine this week. Heck, I think he's already there. So he's boots on the ground. We'll find out what Coach Mack is up to. But how do you think your Vols stand in the SEC standings next year? What does Vegas say? We'll tell you that next.
Did you know Eurofix has a very different business philosophy? They staff all their locations with more staff than the average auto repair shop, just so they can be ready for when your emergency pops up out of nowhere. And have you ever noticed how hard it can be to get a right now appointment for your vehicle repair? Well, some dealers can be more than 2 weeks out just to get a freaking appointment. But not Eurofix. Eurofix has been offering quality repairs that beat the dealer without the dealer pricing since 1999. Plus a 3-year nationwide warranty and the staff to fix your car right now. So if you're tired of waiting forever to get your car into the shop, then call Eurofix. And owner Aaron Stokes says, we will never be too busy for our customers. We're here to take their pain away, and we mean right now. And Eurofix repairs all European cars, and Eurofix says yes to speedy repair when others can't or won't. Family owned for 24 years. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But I always tell them, Blaine, did you?
It is 1:59. Good afternoon. I'm Joseph Bonanno. The NFL Scouting Combine is this week in Indianapolis, and the Tennessee Titans have met with the media, where both Ryan Carthon and Ryan Callahan discussed the 2024 wide receiver draft class.
Yeah, I think there's an element of explosiveness, of speed that we can add that would help us. This is a really fun class of players, really from the top part of the class all the way down to the bottom. There's going to be good receivers. I think you'll find that'll come off the board in the second, third, and fourth rounds that I think will be contributors for some teams. So it's a deep class. There's really a lot of variations of player. There's guys that are good with the ball in their hands. There's guys that are really fast. There's guys that are big and strong. So there's a good mix of talent that fits. And when you're building the receiver room, you're trying to collect a little bit of all of those things. And so it's a fun class to evaluate, and hopefully we can find a couple guys that fit us.
Outside of the draft class, it is a star-studded free agent running back market, as Adam Schefter reported yesterday that Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, and Austin Eckler will not be franchise tagged. And of course, the same goes for Titans running back Derrick Henry, who will also hit the open market. Tonight, the Nashville Predators return home, looking to extend the win streak to 6, hosting the Ottawa Senators. The Senators, a 7 p.m. puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. College basketball tonight, Vanderbilt travels to Arkansas for an 8 p.m. tip. Number 16, Kentucky visits Mississippi State at 6 p.m. And top-ranked Houston will host Cincinnati, also at 6. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Let's go. Hour number 2. Blaine and Mickey, how's everybody doing? Tuesday, February 27th. The weather's warm. The combine is going on. Let's just tell you, we're watching, got it on the NFL Network here, as close as we got this year. Guys in backpacks and their sweats, and they got their gallons of water that they're drinking, and they're all walking down the hallway. There's no workouts today. Those will come Thursday, but I guess physicals and all the other things that have to go on now, Blaine, are going on. But
physicals and meeting with the coaching staffs. That's always interesting in the questions you get in those meetings. Yeah.
Were you trying to show as lighter or heavier? Do you remember? The reason I ask
What
is,
do you mean?
I was reading about a quarterback from a few years ago, and he said his agent told him, you need to weigh over 210 pounds. And he drank so many gallons of water that he weighed like 212 for the combine. He said, and after that, I didn't. But he drank water to have water weight when he weighed in.
Well, I think it depends on each individual player.
Yeah.
When it comes to, are you heavy enough for your position, so you want to be heavier. For me, it wasn't that. I wanted to make sure I was in shape so I could run a good 40. Mm-hmm. So I actually wanted to be lighter, but I think I weighed in at 192 or something, 193. I think I was 193, and that's what I played at, but I wish I was a little bit lighter. You get caught up in lifting the weights and doing all that stuff, and you realize after it's over with, like, the weightlifting wasn't really, for me as a skilled guy, It didn't really matter. I needed to do better on the drills. And for me, I'm talking about DB drills. The cones and all those things, I was decent. Broad jump, vertical. So it's the DB drills and the 40 for a skilled guy. So
and you still threw up 225 how many times?
I don't know. I wasn't a rep guy, but so that was kind of a thing I had to work on. So I think I did. I can't remember if I did 25 or 27.
Dude,
and I think that started.
There's DBs that don't put it up 10.
Well, here's what happens is they go, there is no corners doing that, so
right.
He's not a corner.
You lifted your way out of being a corner.
So I don't remember what it was, but I was in the 20s, and so I was actually perturbed that I thought I was going to get 30, to be honest, because I'd started practicing. I thought it would be easy when I start training for the combine, which I trained at Ball State. Didn't have an agent send me, so I'd go somewhere on the weekends that I could drive to. My agent at that time was Jim Steiner. He was my agent the whole time. And he would drive every other week because I told him I'm disciplined. I'm going to do everything the guy tells me to do. So don't even worry about that. We're not going to waste some money.
Right.
For just, flying me to some trainer. So I would go up there and he'd give me all the tips and everything else. And then I'd go back and do it for a couple of weeks and then come back to him. So it was an easy drive there with my Renault Encore there. But so that's kind of, what happened with me. Things have changed now. They got so many training facilities. Everybody, that's how you kind of meet all the other players. But I kind of always worked best as a lone ranger because I would push myself harder than anything else. And I was just a driven guy. So it was just, for me, that was the best way to work because I stay focused and don't get distracted.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was kind of the best thing for me. But, I didn't run as fast as 40 I want, 4.54, and I didn't do the DB drills. The cones and all that was great, but the DB drills, man, you get out in the open field, especially depth perception when I was like 40, 50 yards down the field and the quarterback's throwing the ball. Well, I think I mistimed every jump and every ball almost. Yeah, because you're so pumped up and you're jacked up.
Sure.
You just got to just relax, go out there, especially coming from where I came from at Ball State. You're always trying to prove that you belong, even though I was there and was invited. It wasn't a highly, named, player, that all the other guys were. So I was always saying, okay, I'm going to take one guy down each drill we do. This guy, I'm better than him. Boom, I'm going to show him. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of how I was thinking. In reality is you just kind of need to just focus on you and what your process is to be the best version of who you can be. Yeah, so that competitive spirit kind of got me a little bit, and then I would get ahead of myself on some of the drills. Yeah. So it was enlightening though, for sure. But I still came out of it feeling, well, dang, I think I'm okay. I didn't hurt myself for sure. So that's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah. A bunch of those guys who are going to be there, as you said this earlier today, they could just hold their own combine, the SEC. So SEC Conference Championship odds dropped. We have a friend named Jimmy Shapiro, who's quite a character. He sends us stuff from Bet Online. So these are the Bet Online odds. No surprise. Who Vegas thinks will win the SEC? Georgia.
No.
2-1 odds. So you gotta bet more than $1 to make $1 if it's Georgia. Texas number 2. So new to the conference, Texas, Sharks got it figured out. Ole Miss 3. Tied for 4th in odds, Alabama and Tennessee, 9-1.
It is insane to me. And I know this is the Nick Saban effect after he left, but that Alabama is not in the top 2 to win the SEC championship game. It's just a different world to me.
Seeing Texas instead of Alabama?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised. Who won the game last year? The Texas part.
Texas show did.
Texas won, and then they had them on the ropes the year before. They actually really should have won the game.
Let them off the hook, as Dennis Green said.
So, I'm not surprised with that one. I'm more surprised with the Ole Miss at 3. Where did they finish last year? We're talking about the entire conference, right?
Yeah, this is everybody.
So, I don't know. Maybe I just don't know enough about Ole Miss. I don't know they're supposed to be there. Did they get a whole bunch of transfer portal guys?
Yeah, remember, that was the whole thing.
Well, 2 guys didn't go there. That they said they were going to go there from UT. They did not go there.
Yeah,
they transferred to Louisville.
Tyler Barron and
the nickel guy from Memphis, number 12.
T-Mac, Terry McDonald.
Yeah. They ended up both going to Louisville. So who did they get? Like, I know they got some other players. I just don't know who they got that's like, now they're Ole Miss is over the top.
Ahead of Alabama and Tennessee and LSU. Now LSU's got to figure out their quarterback. But think about this, Drinkowitz. I still haven't even said Missouri yet, and they returned a bunch of guys.
Hey, man, y'all better quit sleeping on the drink. Either y'all drinking or something, because they looked, they took Georgia to the shed, man. It was to the middle of the fourth where it's like, I think Georgia got him. But you still wasn't sure.
Nope.
So, and that quarterback's coming back?
Yep.
Cook? Oh, no.
Plus, Luther Burden, the star-studded wide receiver who...
Yeah, and he's a Missouri guy, right?
Yeah.
So he stayed home.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Did you find anything on Ole Miss?
Yeah, so I'm looking at On 3, their 2024 transfer portal guys. So they had a couple guys leave. They had Ladarius Tennyson go from Ole Miss to UCF, and Quinshon Judkins was the big loss from Ole Miss to Ohio State. In terms of who they got, let's see, a guy from Arkansas, Chris Paul Jr.,
Skittle
linebacker.
says in the F&M Bank chat, remember, guys, they got Walter Nolan.
They did get Walter Nolan. The guy who was at Texas A&M was, highly recruited by Tennessee, number one player in his class on the D-line. They got Key Lawrence, who was a former safety at Tennessee, then transferred to Oklahoma. Now he's going to Ole Miss. Juice Wells, that was another big one from South Carolina that they got from there. He had a really good year, or he had the game against Tennessee in 2022 where he just kind of went off in that game that they lost. And I know that's saying something because Tennessee's defense wasn't, great then, but really good wide receiver. I think he was one of the top 3 wide receivers in the transfer portal in this go-around. Princely, I can't pronounce this guy's last name. Umana Milan, I'm probably saying that wrong. He's an edge rusher from Florida, supposed to be a really good guy. Walter Nolan.
Transferred from where?
From Florida.
From Florida.
He's an edge rusher, 4-star guy. And then Walter Nolan was their cream of the crop. Brandon Turnage from Tennessee went there as well. A guy that was from Alabama, I believe. Went from Alabama to Tennessee, and now from Tennessee to Ole Miss. So
right, who did not start?
Yeah,
correct. So they got a ton of guys. It's not more that they had some stars in there. Juice Wells, Walter Nolan, those guys are stars, but they had a huge influx of transfers that just boosted their roster in terms of how many guys they have on their roster. And they always constantly win 10 to 11 games under Lane Kiffin, or at least that's what it's been like the last couple years. And so now with the fact that you don't have to win your division, and you just have
to playoffs.
You just have. Yeah. Well, even or to go to the SEC championship game, you just have to be a top 2 team in the SEC. You don't have to win. So you're not trying to beat out Alabama in the West this year, or Tennessee's not trying to beat out Georgia in the East this year. You're just trying to be one of the top 2 teams in the SEC to go to the SEC championship game. So if they win 10 or 11 games, depending on what the other teams do, I don't know. It's possible.
Right. Okay. So is Tennessee better than Ole Miss?
I would say right now, probably not. I think Ole Miss is a lot more experienced. They got Jackson Dart, all this influx of experienced offensive and defensive players, and then with Tennessee, you got Nico, who showed out against Iowa, so you're at least hopeful for what the future holds, but you don't really know what you have yet, and you don't really know what you have against SEC talent because Nico never played against SEC talent. It was always Joe Milton. They never put Nico in. So you don't know what you have. So
they put him in at the end again.
Yeah. So right now, I would say Ole Miss is better than Tennessee just because they have a lot more experience. And some of these guys they got in the transfer portal, Walter Nolan, Juice Wells, like those guys are going to make an immediate impact. Not saying that Tennessee doesn't have guys like that, but right now, without seeing how the teams are going to play in 2024, because who knows, Ole Miss could get out there and just completely blow ship. And
not ain't gonna do that. To me, being a UT guy, to me, this is the time you're supposed to pump your chest and be like, no, Ole Miss will never be better than us. Y'all worried about Alabama, who's on the downturn because they lost their coach and a whole bunch of players left. Who cares about Alabama at this point? If they're not up in the top 2, then Ole Miss is supposed to be better. Oh, no way, no how. As a fan, I don't think Tennessee fans will even accept that. And for you to say that was kind of interesting. I don't. Just because you got an influx of players, first of all, football is not a one-man show. This is not like basketball. You got to develop chemistry, and guess what? You don't know if they're me guys. That means M-E. It's all about me. Mm-hmm. See? And once you get some of these high-profile people in there, players, sometimes the group doesn't excel better because of 1 or 2 players who play as individuals. So that's the part. The chemistry part is underrated, and it is big in football. So I don't know. Ole Miss better than UT. I'd be more pissed off about that in the rankings if I'm a UT person. I don't care who they got. regardless. It doesn't matter. All that matters is the quarterback. The quarterback's the same quarterback they had last year. Hey, man.
Well, Tennessee returning guys on the O-line. Really, the question mark for me for Tennessee is how do they rebuild the secondary?
That's a good point.
Because they played all those old guys last year, and all people did was gripe about the secondary. Remember, those guys were all like 5th and 6th year guys.
So they left.
So they left. When did they leave?
That's it. I mean, you're going to put up points.
Yep.
So come catch us. We in the race. We out front. That and your defense don't have to be great.
Don't have to be great.
Like, so dang. Maybe I need to. I'm gonna start watching. I'm gonna be watching Ole Miss. I'm gonna watch the spring game and everything.
So looking at Ole Miss's schedule, because it's interesting to see like how Tennessee and Ole Miss schedules compare.
Okay.
So they'll both play Kentucky. Ole Miss has Oklahoma at home.
Oh.
And then they have Georgia at home. And those are really their two toughest.
What?
Yeah, I mean, they play LSU.
Oklahoma's
they play
50-1
in
odds on this thing. They're in the middle of the pack.
They play LSU in Baton Rouge, but LSU just lost their Heisman quarterback. Their defense was completely gone last year. There's no way they rebuilt it in an offseason.
2 top-notch receivers, including Neighbors.
They're losing. They're losing their entire offense right now.
Yeah.
South Carolina's been on the downturn since 2022.
90-1 odds.
Okay, so I hear all wins. Who do they play that they go to lose to?
Georgia.
Besides Georgia, I mean,
maybe Florida at Gainesville. I'm not really confident about that.
Schedule?
Florida's 100-1 odds. They're in the bottom of this thing.
Kentucky at home.
They don't play UT?
No.
No, they got a fluff schedule.
They play Furman, MTSU, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern, Kentucky, South Carolina, LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi State. Looking at this.
Oh, they libeled you. Might as well just hand them undefeated.
Oklahoma.
Or maybe one.
Well, no, one lost Georgia.
And one loss. They're one of the 12.
Oklahoma and Georgia. That's why I said Oklahoma and Georgia are probably their two most difficult games. And maybe Florida on the road.
Well, that's what they're looking at. And then they go up. They're going to finish 11-1. 10-2 max. When you look at their schedule. All right, now go through UT schedule.
Let's do this, and then let's hit it, and we'll get Coach Mack in here next.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, looking at Tennessee's schedule. So Chattanooga, NC State, Kent State. Then they go on the road for their first SEC game in Norman, Oklahoma. Then on the road to Arkansas. Then they get Florida at home, Alabama at home, Kentucky at home, Mississippi State at home, Georgia on the road, UTEP, and Vanderbilt.
Oh, well, all right. When you look at the schedule, tell us, before we go to break, how many wins do you see?
For Tennessee?
Yeah.
He's going to say 10.
Yeah. Just like Ole Miss.
I'm going to say 9. I'm going to say 10. Because Vanderbilt. I didn't count Vanderbilt at the end.
Are you saying 10. At Oklahoma?
Yeah.
And versus, what's the other
Oklahoma
one?
wasn't very good last year.
I'm going to say on the road, freshman or a sophomore quarterback with no SEC experience, Nico. Right now I'm kind of iffy on whether or not his first road SEC game in Norman. That's a great crowd. I know that.
Watch this. Who is the quarterback for Oklahoma? Did they get a transfer?
No, they have that freshman.
So he has no experience either.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, that's where we're going.
But his first SEC game is going to be at home. So,
boy,
UT better have a better record than Ole Miss. No. I hear in the schedule of both, they got to beat them, man.
Well, the great thing is,
got to beat them.
We'll get to watch it all play out. And we'll get to watch it all play out with Coach Mack because he will join us next live from Indy. Coach Mack talking Combine.
You got to believe.
Well, when you hear that music, it only means one thing: the return of Coach Mack here on Blaine and Mickey. Coach Mack coming at you live from Indy, courtesy of the good folks at Two Rivers Ford, Middle Tennessee's most trusted local Ford dealership. For 40 years, Coach Mack and his crew they probably just jumped in a Ford F-150 or something and drove up to Indy. Coach, what's going on in Indianapolis? What's the buzz up there, sir?
Oh, everything. It's going. I mean, I'm sitting here right now, right in the middle of it, right in the middle of Radio Row here. I mean, this has been a big day for, coaches at the podium. And then, of course, we did our things with Titans Radio. We sat down for pretty extensive talks with, Jordan Reed of ESPN. And also we had Daniel Jeremiah today. And then we just got through cutting about an hour OTP going over some of the things that, the head coach and the general manager had talked about it at the podium. And then, of course, just visiting with everybody. So it's full go here.
I know a lot of people want to see guys run and jump and how many times they bench press and, hear about medicals and all that kind of stuff. But I can't even imagine how much business gets done behind the scenes where trade talks start about a guy I can't imagine, because this is the jumping off point for so much of that too, right? Because you got everybody in the same place for the most part.
Yeah, there's a lot going on now. I mean, this is, where, teams start to talk to agents and teams start to talk to teams. And absolutely. I mean, this is kind of the nerve center for the National Football League for the next week. I mean, this is where everybody is and where everything's going on. Mike Keith figured out today, this was my 38th combine. So I've seen it change a whole lot, from the days of when it first started here in Indy in 1987, and now, I mean, it's grown into a monster. It really has.
For sure. Coach Mack right there in the middle of it again, covering things for the Tennessee Titans and calling shows like us here on Blaine and Mickey to give us the Mack Attack.
Well, Coach, I guess tell us a little bit about the Combine, and you talked about how it's changed so much. What's so different or what's new about it? Because it seems like, they're talking about they were going to move it. It wasn't going to be on TV. Now we get to watch it all the time. I mean, now they put it in prime time on the weekends. And, I mean, man, it just seems like it's kind of evolved into this big, huge monster and big event. What are some of the intricacies, I guess, of the Combine that have changed?
Well, I mean, you're right, Blaine. You're saying it's become an event. Used to be, I mean, it was when it was in the RCA Dome here in '87. When it was that was still the spot here, their field. I mean, you only had coaches and players in there. You couldn't get in. The press had to stand outside the doors or had to stand in the hallways and wait until you came out to be able to talk about just a little bit of what was going on in there. And everything was very, very protected. I mean, the press couldn't get in here at all. That's number one. And now, as you said, Blaine, this has it's come into a major event. Now you've got fans that are here. Once it starts on Thursday and over there in Lucas Oil, there'll be fans in the stands now watching this. I mean, the size and the scope that this thing has become. And then just like, Radio Row set up here, I mean, there used to be hardly any press when I first started this in 1987. Now, I mean, all you can do, I'm sitting here at one end, and all you see is just tables, rows of 1, 2, 3, 4 clear across this whole convention floor here. So it's been amazing, and the organization of it has gotten a lot better. It used to be a complete free for all. It was, and I say that with all the due respect of what a free for all is, because there was really, I mean, there were no scheduled interviews. You had to go up to rooms and grab people out of the rooms, try to hide them in your room, let them go out the back door. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was no semblance of order to it. I mean, it was just, and it started getting better and better, and now it runs like clockwork. It also, the thing that's happened to Blaine is that the amount of time they have the players here now has lengthened, at least for the positions, as to where you're not having guys Cybex in the morning and try to run a 40 in the afternoon.
Yeah,
yes.
that was me. Yeah, that happened to me.
Yeah,
that's why I ran a bad time, I'm sure.
Well, it had something to do with it. I mean, if people don't understand right here now, the people listening, if they don't understand our listeners on 104.5, the Cybex is where you just try to blow your quads out, trying to test strength in your knee and just take it to the max, and you're laying back on that chair. When you're done, you're just blown out. Yeah. They say, okay, go up there and take a rest, and then this evening you're running your 40. I mean, it made no sense. it's all geared towards the thing that's best for the player, which I'm all for. And I mean, I've seen it evolve. I've been to every one of them that they've ever had here, and the evolution of it has really been amazing. It's kind of like, you know, the new facility that the Titans have. You really can't appreciate it unless you'd been in the old facility. You know, unless you'd been, and that's kind of what this is. And of course, you know, I know just about everybody here now, and they'll come up and they've asked the same question just face to face here today. Mac, how much has it changed? And I said, how much time have you got?
Oh my. Well, Coach Mack, we on with Coach Mack giving us the Mac attack. You had to go back into your vault here from last combine. Last year, what player did you view and you changed your mind on them after the combine? And what was it? You know, who was it and how did that work?
Yeah, I mean, I said I've been to 38 of them, so that's 38 times 300.
No, we just don't go last year. Just last year.
I can't even. Take me back to who was in last year's draft.
I have no
idea. And I don't either. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you.
Okay. Do you remember somebody like that? You're like, oh, this guy is different than what we've seen on tape.
You know what? And that does happen. I mean, it very much does happen. But most of the time, it happens. It happens towards. In other words, somebody will not run very well or run very good, but you watch the tape and go, this guy can play ball. This guy can. It makes you go back and see. Well, this guy. So now, what comes up to your mind is, okay, is this guy just, you know, did he train for this stuff? Because as you well know, you were in this. You have to train specifically for what you do here. And it's completely different than what you do playing football. So absolutely. I mean, and this is I'm glad you bring this up, Blaine, because this is the point of time in the evaluation period where you start, because these scouts has been watching these guys for 12 months, all right, of this group that have been here. And so now from this time forward, you will read and you will hear about poking holes in the players. Okay, this is when they start to say, well, maybe he's not as good. That's the area. That's the time of talking we're in right now. I mean, I've experienced it today, you know, because people will come up, Mac, what have you got in your notebook? Let me see. Do you really? I don't think he's quite this good, quite this. So now you're in that type of a period right now. So you ask me which player. It happens to a lot of players here, but a lot of times what you're doing, it's kind of like what you need to do is just once you've gathered that information, your first impression, most of the time, if you've got an eye for this stuff and you've got a good gut feel, you don't want to get over smart and talk yourself out of something that when you started watching, you knew was right.
There you have it, Coach Mack giving us the Mac attack.
So, Coach, for somebody who's been to every one of these Indy combines, a lot of us are going to watch every bit of this that we can see on TV, especially once the workouts start. So people who are listening, they love the Mac Attack and they love Mac Talk Show. Give those folks some advice when they watch the drills. What do they need to be looking out for?
Well, different positions are different. What you want to watch when you're watching positions. Let's go with the position that Blaine played. One of the big things that you will watch when you're looking at this. Of course, they're all going to run, and everybody understands when they run a 40, and how much that equates or not, to playing great football. Yeah, people are kind of hedging on that, and I agree with that because you never run in a straight line anyway. Playing in the National Football League or any real football. But the thing to watch when you're watching the defensive backs is watch when they do the back pedal and the double turn and flip drill. Mm-hmm. See how many guys have to take extra steps, how many guys when they're starting to back pedal or get on their heels. See how many guys also when they make that last flip turn, when they throw the deep ball, they make that last flip turn. Watch and see how many guys are running on their heels where their eyes are bouncing. Like if you're an outfielder in baseball, you always stay on the balls of your feet because if you're chasing a fly ball and you're hitting on the heels of your feet, your eyes are bouncing. Okay, and all of a sudden you're seeing two balls instead of one. Just kind of.
We got to cut that.
Kind of watch those things. When you're looking at it, and when you watch the big men, watch their lower body flexion. Just take a look at, see what guys are in the drills that they're doing. what guys are doing in more straight-legged, and what guys are showing some real flexibility from the knees and from the hips to the knees to the ankles, because that's the way the game is played.
There are some coaches who aren't going to go this week. I guess they felt like they could spend their time better in other ways. Is this something as a coach that you ever could have felt like that you could skip?
Well, we didn't have the technology back then. They do
also
now.
TV.
Yep.
And TV and the technology. See, everything that's done here is documented. It's shot right to your desk.
Ooh.
And these coaches that are not here, they can be in on the interviews, with Zoom.
Sure.
I mean, they've all got those cameras set up in their meeting rooms, in those suites that they have, and they can be right there, right there with like the Wizard of Oz, that big hit on the screen. They can be right there in the room. And so there's so much that technology has brought to the fact that now so much of this stuff can be done. And here's the other thing too, depending on where you are with your staff, that was always the big plus for me when I was coaching in the league, and I was coaching in Chicago or I was coaching in Tennessee, because the combine is here. You can drive here. It's very convenient. But to get here from the West Coast, it's travel. Yeah. I mean, the time differences. I mean, there's a lot to it. There really is a whole lot to it. But now the technology has completely, I think all of us have learned technology-wise how to do business since COVID without being in person.
The one and only Coach Mack joining us in person here, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, giving us the Mack attack on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, Coach, I know it's going to be hard to describe, but if you had to make, I guess, a speculation or a guess, educated guess, watching players now from what you've seen on film, what players would you think are going to give you a freakish, Javon freakish type performance? Doesn't mean they're going to be great, but they're going to do well at a lot of these testing type drills and 40 and vertical and all those things.
Well, I'm looking forward, to watching a few of those types of guys. And let me just start with the edge. I tell you, a real freak physically with just explosive movement is the Chop Robinson kid from Penn State.
Oh,
I mean, this guy is an edge
rusher
player.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an edge player. He's a motorcycle lean guy. He's got great bend. He's an explosive dude. I would expect him to really test off the charts. The other guy that I think will test off the charts probably is going to be Terrion Arnold from Alabama. I mean, this kid will probably be a really, really good tester, and plus he's a really good player. I'm very, very interested. I'm very interested in watching and seeing how some of these guys, these bigger guys, and especially the offensive tackles, seeing how these. I want to really see how this Jackson Powers Johnson kid from Oregon test that had such a great Senior Bowl, the center. I want to see how for what he does as an offensive lineman, to see how he's going to test. That's a few of the names. I think what we're going to look at when we start getting into these offensive tackles, these big men. I'm really interested to see how Joe Alt tests. I want to see how Fashanu tests. But then I want to really take a look at and see some of these physical tests on these guys that I think are really good players. In Talaiisi Fuaga from Oregon State, there's been a lot of talk about him, about him down here, and then also the kid from Arizona, Jordan Morgan, that is he's got length, he's got excellent knee flex and stuff. I like to see. I'm very interested to see how he's going to test. These big men testing is something. Now the receivers and the DBs are going to run some ridiculous times. You know that. And there's also some smaller DBs that are they're going to run right out of the building. They really are. So there's plenty of these guys down there. 325 guys. So we've got a chance to see some really good testing.
Well, can't wait to watch it all unfold next year, or next week, rather, when you come on with us. We'll talk about all the great things that you saw there. We'll have real results to talk about and hand sizes and all sorts of stuff. Can't wait.
Guys, it's always a pleasure being on with you guys talking ball. We'll see you.
Yes, sir, the one and only Coach Mack.
Thank you.
He's been to every combine that they've had in Indy. Always love getting that perspective. Perspective on Traylon Burks. Ryan Callahan spoke today, so did Ryan Carthon. Ryan Callahan was asked basically about Jamar Chase and kind of transition that into Traylon Burks. So what did he say? We'll get to that next. You can hear what he thinks about the Titans receiver who really needs to step up. That's coming up next on the final segment of Blaine and Mickey for Tuesday. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. NFL Combine getting started. Today we heard from Ryan Callahan, and we heard from, Brian Callahan. We heard from Ryan Callahan on this show for 247. I told you I was going to do it. I did it.
Hey, that's why, that's what they got the point, man.
Ryan Carthon also spoke.
Point.
They talked a lot about receivers today, as Blaine said, and it's the season of lies. Boy, did they talk a lot about receivers. They even kind of segued at one point, Callahan did, into a receiver that's currently on the Titans roster, who is the wild card of all wild cards, Traylon Burks. How far back did you get into this, Bananas?
Like into his...
Is he talking about Jamar Chase first, or did you cut to what he's just talking about?
So he spent like 30, 45 seconds talking about comparing Jamar Chase to other wide receivers and how it's basically impossible.
You can't do it.
I cut all that out, and
Okay.
I just got to the part where he talked about Traylon.
So he was... you can't hear the question. We tried a million times here. You can't hear the question, but essentially it was maybe compare Jamar Chase to the guys on this roster. I don't know. And he essentially said, I can't do that. I think he said he's his own animal.
Yeah.
Is what he said. But he transitioned into Traylon Burks, and this is what the new Titans head coach said about him.
I do like some of the traits that Traylon has shown on tape. There's some things that I'm excited to work with. And then he's got to do his part when it comes down to taking care of yourself and making sure he's ready to roll when we start. But talented player and one that's got some development to go. I would say Jamar's development is in a whole different stratosphere. He didn't need a whole lot of it. But again, I'm excited about what Traylon could bring for us once he comes in the building.
So this guy was the 18th overall pick last year in the first round, and he did slip in the last little bit about Chase, like, hey, man, we really didn't have to develop him. There's no development. Traylon Burks has played 11 games as a rookie. He played 11 games in his second year of NFL football. His first year, he caught 33 balls for 444 yards and 1 touchdown. He also recovered a fumble touchdown that everybody remembers. So he scored 2, but when he was the right place at the right time and jumped on the ball and scored. Last year, no touchdowns. He had 221 receiving yards on 16 receptions last year, Blaine. He also ran the ball 5 times for 18 yards in his second year with the Titans. I don't know if there's a guy that I am more interested who is currently on the roster and thinking, what in the world is going to happen to this guy?
Yeah, this one here is going to be an interesting one because I'm not sure what his actual skill sets are. Like, you want to define that every player, what you are at this point in time, and he hasn't been able to do it because he hasn't stayed healthy. And for him as a receiver, is he a good route runner? Is he a deep threat? Is he a reverse gadget guy? Slot guy? So I don't even know what he is or potentially could be. I haven't seen him enough. Even on, I want to say we got the stat from college. He was inside, but I think his game is he's an outside player. And he may end up being more just a really good player, kind of a la Corey Davis, than a true number one. That's as far as I can go right now because I just hadn't seen enough. I think, he's going to have to polish up on his route running. I don't see the elusiveness that I want to see if he's just a slot guy on those reverses. I haven't seen enough. I haven't seen any wiggle, no change of direction, all of a sudden burst. He's a long strider, like he gets going, then he's fast. I don't see what I really want to see at this point. So I just kind of say he's an outside receiver.
One of the first things you ever told me, we were talking about off-season training one year, and I said, what did you train on? And you said, I found something I thought I was deficient at. So I would, if it was, lateral quickness, and that's what I'd work on. If it was, being more explosive first step, whatever it is, you told me all these different things you worked on. If he called you and said, hey, man, help me out, what should I work on this year? Like, what would your – because you had to figure it out for yourself.
Well, most athletes, I was just different in my thought process. First of all, I would run to my weaknesses.
Right.
They run away from their weaknesses. And so that's when you know you've arrived, when you try to say, okay, I'm going to work on my weaknesses, whether it was me being press man, me working on my speed, everything else was going to come into play. Me working on my man-to-man, holding my leverage, be disciplined, eye discipline, eye control. So all those things, if I was talking to him, man, everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything. When I say that, I'm going to say, okay, I want you to work on your lateral quickness. I want you to work on, first and foremost, as a wide receiver, you must become a polished route runner. That sets up everything else. I don't care how fast you are. I don't care how quick you are. If you're not a polished route runner, eventually it's going to come and haunt you. So you start there, and then I'd say I'd work on his lateral quickness. And then after that, kind of let his natural ability take over, because he's got some high-level quality. He wouldn't go in the first round. So that's where I would start route running, because I think he's going to be more of an outside guy. And then if he does move inside, because you will still run routes from the inside on the slot, work on his lateral quickness. Getting out of breaks, the punch out of breaks is really huge for a DB as well as a wide receiver. And that can get your separation right there. That's always a big deal for wide receivers. Used to be always also getting off the jam.
Right.
But now most guys aren't, unless you're an elite player, are you even jamming guys. So they're kind of all playing off. So, but make sure you can get off of that. He seems like a big physical guy, but he's also a big target.
Chris in Brentwood, we got about a minute left. Chris says he knows Brock Bowers. I'm just curious. Let's take this before we go. How could we not take this? Hey, Chris.
Hey, guys. Love the show. Make it quick. So, from California, my son and Brock played 7-on-7 growing up together in California. Brock went to Georgia. My son went and played at Louisville same year. And the one thing about Brock that no one really ever gets to see is, yes, he's athletically talented, but when you see him do the vertical at the combine, you're going to be amazed by the vertical numbers. He can leap out of a gym, and you should see him play basketball as well. It's unbelievable. So one thing to look out for this weekend or next week at the combine is his vertical leap. It's phenomenal.
Well, there you go. Thank you for checking in, Chris. A little inside information there.
Cool.
Chris should see my vertical. Man, you could probably slide like 2 tall phone books in.
I was going to ask him if he beat mine at 42.5 at the combine. But he's a pretty powerful guy. He's pretty explosive. Yeah, Chris Carter here. You said Blaine is wrong here. Everything points to a strong slot player, and that is absolutely right based off of his college performance. That is very true. But in the pros, he doesn't define actually what one looks like and how they play. And until we actually see that, do we really know if he can do it? To be honest, I want him to be that guy, but I don't know. So if not, you're going to have to go back outside and run routes.
I would call him and tell him to stay healthy.
Yeah, that would be, because
that.
Then eventually we'll get to see what he really is.
Yep.
Whether you like it or not.
Incomplete so far. You're right about that. This show is complete, though, and we got to go because it's time for 3HL to come up next.
But in the meantime.
In between time.
Peace.